clouds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Oh, you and I, we got it. We don't need no more. Even in the hard times, you and I can weather any storm. Before I sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon. Side by side and through. No limit to what we can do. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Oh, you and I, we got it. We don't need no
Therapy Interview Friday. It's Christmas Eve. We are coming to you live from our studio, our makeshift studio here in La Paz, Mexico. This is the path to the beach behind me. This is an incredible day. Hopefully we're getting out there to everybody. It's been a little dicey as far as the internet goes. The voice is much lower than the music. Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, for giving me that note. I appreciate it. We have a great show today. David Cromer. I screwed it up already. David Cromer, theater director, Tony Award-winning director, also incredible actor, is here for Interview Friday. So really appreciating having him on the show. Let's see here. There's some Spanish going on. Bueno. Mucho bonito. So good to be here. This is the ocean that's outside the door, so it's pretty incredible. We're out here on Baja, Mexico, and let's get into this thing. I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 myself a motor. All right. Okay, we're gonna do some breaths here. At the top of the show, we always do 3 deep breaths. We're gonna do that today. Today is no exception. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. I brought my studio engineer, Boney, with me today, and because we are having to do some things that we never do, which is trying to put a studio together in a distant country. Well, not so distant country, but it's a little challenging. I'm just glad we're getting out there. Much better with the mic. Yes, the mic was, I don't know where the mic was. Boney had it under his console there or something. So in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. One more, in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Okay, now I'm going to let you know who David Cromer is. He is a director of the theater. He's made a life in the theater, which is a very challenging thing, especially these days. I met him a long time ago. First professional play I ever did, David Cromer directed it. And now he's a Tony Award-winning director. He had the show called The Band's Visit, which is currently touring the country, but he won the Tony for directing that, and it starred Tony Shalhoub. He also recently directed the play Bug by Tracy Letts at Steppenwolf Theater, and he, very recently, starred in a play called The Waverly Gallery with Joan Allen, Michael Cera, Elaine May. And the play that really put him on the map was a production of Our Town by Thornton Wilder that ended up being one of the longest running productions, if not the longest running production of that classic play. And we're going to talk to him about that and a lot of other things. Let's get into this thing. Happy Christmas Eve. This is the actual ocean outside our door here in La Paz, Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Cromer. David Cromer, welcome to Lunch Therapy. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for asking me.
It's so great to see you. It's been
I know.
like forever.
Let's be clear. How long about? Would you say 1991? Would you say there was 1991?
Yeah, possibly
maybe even when we worked together.
Maybe even
91.
Yeah.
Well, we would have met in 90. I want to say we cast it. I feel like it opened January. It opened. I want to say this is burned in my brain. I think it opened March 15th, 1991.
Wow. So we did a play together called Women in Water.
Yeah, by
and
John
it was
Ware.
at the Big Game Theater.
Right.
It was the prequel to the play Leidy Breeze.
Yeah.
It was a large play meant to be performed on a large stage that we performed in a very small space. And that was
25 actors, 40 seats.
And that's why the theater was called Big Game. I take it. They were taking Big Game and putting it in this little cage. And it was super effective and super fun. I met you. I mean, originally, the first time I saw you, I was working at the box office at Steppenwolf.
Right.
I moved from Seattle, and there was a play called Geography of Luck that you were in.
Right.
And I remember seeing you on the stage and thinking, well, this guy isn't in the ensemble. So like people could actually be cast in these plays that were not in the ensemble.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, you went equity to be in the show. Is that right?
Yeah. I joined the union on that show. The union, the sort of status of like how equity works is different in the 3 big markets. It's really different in LA, it's really different in Chicago, and it's really different in New York. I'm in New York now, you're in LA, we were both in Chicago. So I'm sure we both have something to say about it. But yeah, it was very different. It was easy to get an audition as a non-union actor. Not easy, but it was possible to get an audition as a non-union actor. And then if the role was going to be determined by the theater to be an equity role, they would offer it to you and they say, well, this is an equity role, so you had a choice of whether to join the union or not. If you accept the role and join the union.
At the time, I don't know what it's like in Chicago now, but at the time there was so much opportunity for non-equity theater. Well, everybody was doing non-equity theater, and there was basically the Goodman and Steppenwolf and maybe Victory Gardens and a few other equity stages. But you were joining equity. You made sort of a sacrifice because you weren't going to be able to do these other small venues, and that was like the majority of what was going on at the time. Somebody told me that you had gone equity, and now all of a sudden you had a difficult time doing non-equity theater. And that was one of the reasons you started directing, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, no, I was, I gotta say, I'm a union man. We would not have today off. You know what I mean? We would be working every day, and we were good. Children would still be in factories if it were not for unions. So like, I get it. It was frustrating for me. I was okay. So wait, how do I say this in a way that's interesting on a podcast? No, it wasn't as binary that I would go in and out of the union at various times in my life. I would suspend my membership or quit if I wanted to do something else, because my thing was always like, I just want to do what I want to do, which is my it's very intense toddler brain developed into an adult and never matured past. You're like, I want what I want. How do I scream and yell until I get what I want? And I'm directing was something I drifted into. I was actually directing then. I mean, I was directing when I was in that show. Acting something I would say I drifted out of simply because it wasn't as interesting. It wasn't as sort of all encompassing, and it was I was okay. You know what I mean? I don't think I wanted to do all of the work necessary, all the work on myself necessary to become a better actor. I think I was willing to do all of the work, or a lot of the work that was necessary to be a good director. And that was the toddler brain too, going like, I don't wanna. This is something that's come up in therapy quite a bit. So that was that. So it wasn't as simple, but I would say that I definitely was never going to have a very I don't think I was ever going to have a particularly interesting acting career. I think I was going to be.
But you have, though, in spite of whatever you're saying, you've had a delightful acting career, including roles on Broadway, et cetera, which we'll get into. But I wanted to get to also. So you went to Columbia in Chicago, right?
Yeah, Columbia College.
Columbia College, which was actually a lot of actors and a lot of directors were coming out of that at that time. I don't know. Was it Sheldon Patinkin who was
ran it?
He ran it at the time. What made you go there?
Passed away. It was open admissions. I was a aimless high school dropout who'd gotten a GED, and I was sort of had no my home life had kind of fallen apart. My family everything had sort of scattered and shattered, and there was ill grandparents, and my mother was divorced, and so there wasn't a lot of guidance. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of, here's what you need to do to get to college. Right? I didn't know anything. So there was an open admission school that had a theater department in the city. I didn't know anything about it. I'm not even sure how I found out about it. You could just get in. You could apply. If you had a high school diploma, generally, you could go. I had there was some money put away by my family for college, and so I just went. So I just went there, and it was really pretty random, except that I think I wouldn't have had to work very hard to get in, and I think that appealed to me.
Did you direct there too?
I eventually directed there, yeah, but mostly I acted. But then I eventually directed. But it was great because, like anything, I don't know. I mean, everyone's experience is different, but I think about the kind of the design of the school was that people who were not good at being students, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Had a chance to go to a place where like I might not have been a good student, but I was probably a good art student, because when I got there, I was like flourished for the first time in my life. So you know,
I remember Gary Sinise said the same thing to me when I first met him at Steppenwolf. He had said that he was like trouble in school and had a hard time with, and he found the theater department. You know, a lot of actors, they're cheeky and they say, I went into theater because of the girls, you know, but he was like, no, I went into theater because it was like an anchor for me. All of a sudden I found myself in that.
Right.
And I think a lot of times artists have brains that might not fit into the particular box, or maybe they're not left-brained enough or something like that to handle some of the other curriculum, but they're super suited towards theater or the arts. And I think maybe that's what you're describing.
Yeah, personality is allowed. I'm not talking about, I guess I'm just sort of imagining from Gary's standpoint, or people like that. Personality is allowed. Transgressiveness to a certain extent is allowed, is encouraged.
Yeah.
You know, pushing envelope pushing in terms of taking risks about like subject matter, or taking risks about revelation and stuff like that, is somehow encouraged, you know, for sort of people who act out in the arts. Yeah, that was you
also had a sort of maturity about you that at that time that I don't know where you got it. I mean, you talk about it like you were in sort of in a flux kind of period and sort of trying to find yourself. But I remember when you cast me in that play and we started working on it, you knew exactly what you wanted. You were you were actually an early role model for me because of the way that you kind of took charge of your art and also took initiative to start something on your own and then take it from start to finish. Like you were one of the first kind of producers of something that I watched, who was also an actor. So it was really interesting for me to see.
That's great to hear, and that's very meaningful to me. As I was getting ready today to demonstrate, I was just sort of prepping, wandering around the apartment, thinking, what would I say about that? I was thinking about Women in Water because that's what we did, which was a seminal. Without being self-aggrandizing, that was a show that when I remember when I stumbled onto the play, I was looking for a play to direct at that theater. They'd asked me to direct a play, and I found that. And it was in the middle of the night, I finished reading, and I was jumping up and down, and I felt like actual joy. And I was like, I was trying to call people in the middle of the night. And it was very clear to me, like it was a big play, and there was we ran into a lot of terrible problems, and but it's making a play is hard.
Yeah.
But I just remember it was clear to me. And I don't mean this in a self-grandizing way, but I just mean like, I could tell, like it was a big idea. It was a big sort of task. And I do remember wanting to do something that hard, which was not something I had done before, you know, and also discovering that when things went south, there was a lovely, lovely, wonderful actor who was a little undisciplined, who I took a stand against and fired during tech, and then we couldn't get someone else to replace him, and then I had to go back hat in hand and ask him to come, like just disastrous.
Oh, really? Oh my God.
That wonderful actor, his name escapes me, who played Montier, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's so bad that I can't remember his name. It was 35
it was so long ago. It's so long ago. It's difficult. All I remember is Peter Blood. I remember there's Peter Blood, who was
Peter Blood.
His name was Peter Brown, I think, at the time or something, and he changed it to Blood.
Well, when he had to join SAG, I want to say there was already a Peter Brown, so he jokingly changed his name to Peter Blood, and his agency wanted him to change his name. He changed it to Peter Blood, sort of as a joke. They were mad that he changed it to Peter Blood, and then he got a lot of work.
Yeah.
So then he was like Peter Blood for the rest of his life. He started working.
I love that.
So he had to be Peter Blood. I don't know. Yeah, but that was I just remember I
remember the first rehearsal, like we were in some kind of gym or something. For me, it was a huge moment because it was the first time that somebody had like cast me in something, and I had really had a hard time trying to get parts, and you cast me in this thing, and I was like so happy to be there. And then we were in some kind of a gym, and I remember it seemed like you had the whole thing in your head, because you were already saying, okay, this is what's going to happen here. And this, you were like, it was like you were blocking it, like from the beginning, like you'd seen it.
I did. I learned so much on that show. And I learned there were so many, again, I'm dithering because I don't want to say like, here's why it was so clever, but that was a seminal experience for me, because it was maybe my first or second show out of school. It was an ambitious thing but it was very like Chicago theater, where you say like, go big or go home. We're gonna do something very ambitious on a little postage stamp. There's 100 characters in that. There was 25 actors. There were battle scenes. We were on a ship. We're on a whaling ship. We're on a, you know what I mean? Like there's a battle of Cold Harbor, and we just you remember you stood on. You're a guy who tries to get a truce, and you start waving a white flag, and you get shot and killed, and you fall off a precipice or something like that. You were like you were the other kind of like activist with
it was, my grandmother came to see that play, and I just remembered it the other day, because I was telling my mom that I was going to see you, and my mom and my grandmother got a chance to go see this. My mom lived in Seattle, my grandmother in Pittsburgh, and they loved it. Like, they did not go, what are these people doing this massive play, or in this little box? What they saw the whole thing in their imagination. And it was a real testament to that play. I was like, wow.
It's a great play. It's a great play. And we had a great company, and we did. But yeah, that was the thing. I remember when things I was saying about letting that actor go, just too, that like, I remember there was a moment where I just realized I had so massively fucked us on a very tight schedule by like not being able to, by making this like principled stand about a guy who had screwed up. He just screwed up. And we all screwed up, and everybody screws up all the fucking time. And you have to fucking, let people have little screw ups. And I took some disciplined stance against this wonderful, big hearted young man, and talented. And mercifully, but like before he agreed to come back and not be a jerk about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just like, I have fucked this up, and I was crying. I was crying. I was home crying, and I couldn't get up, and I had to like get up and go to rehearsal. But I had like just really high passions about this thing. And then the other thing is, I had a great conversation with my dad about it, which is, I said there were things I did not know. This is very self-congratulatory. There were things I didn't know that I could figure out how to do, and that I did figure out how to do on that show. Yeah. So that was a big event for me, and it was very good. And it was definitely career-wise, it was very well received. And so that was a little bit of a.
Do you find it's hard for you to toot your own horn? I hear you telling yourself, no, this is self-aggrandizing. This is something that is going to sound whatever. Do you find yourself doing that? Are you sort of self-deprecating?
No, my ego is so big that I feel would be tasteful for me to pretend to. Yes, okay, and that's its own kind of narcissism. You know what I mean? The self-deprecation. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to think about it in terms of trying to honestly assess good and bad, so that you are not fooling yourself or destroying yourself in a way that doesn't allow you to do good. If you're destroying yourself so hard to allow yourself to do good, you won't permit yourself to accomplish anything. If you think only loftily of your abilities with no sense of where you're going to screw up, that's going to cause a whole bunch of other problems. That's how you run people over in your car, So it's trying to find the balance of both those things. And I think that you said something lovely about the show, and you said something that resonated with me about, I did feel that way about myself. I did go, boy, that was the first show where I went like, I see the whole thing, it's big. And I came out of that going, I can do a big show. Yeah. So that was a big, I'm glad that you enjoyed being in it. I mean, I know we all didn't make any money, but
yeah, but it was one of those things that was just, it was such a great ensemble environment too. Like when I remember being backstage or on wherever we were in the basement or wherever we were, and like all the people that were in the play, and we just had, what a great time we had, you know, what a wonderful time. What was that theater, Big Game Theater? Was that Anna Shapiro or what? Who was?
Anna Shapiro and Tom Bell started. Anna Shapiro, who has been for the last like 6 or 7 years the artistic director of Steppenwolf, the Augustus County big director. She's doing a musical of Devil Wears Prada now. I just saw her the other day. And Tom Bell, who's a TV producer, and he lives in New Jersey now with his family. They started it. Robin Schrager was the managing director. I'm not going to be boring and list a lot of names, but it was Columbia College theater people who started a storefront theater in Chicago. And I know there's lots of I don't know what the term probably is for that kind of grassroots theater in LA. Here it's probably called downtown theater, off Broadway theater, but it's that thing you do for love, so that you can express yourself, so you can do work, so that you can be seen. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that you can showcase yourself, so that you can make a name for yourself. They started that, and it was truly in a storefront. It was in like a little storefront on a street in Loyola. It was on Loyola, the street Loyola, right by the Loyola train station, in Rogers Park. And then Anna went, like right after that, Anna went to graduate school at Yale. Tom moved to LA, and I became artistic director. And I ran it for about 4 years, and I just absolutely sunk it. I did. We always say I ran a theater company. I ran it right into the ground. You know, those theater companies sort of aren't always built to last. Yeah. And it's funny, you said Steppenwolf, you worked in the box office. Steppenwolf's one of the ones that was this model of this bunch of friends who started doing theater in a church basement and somehow managed to maintain it, carry it forward. I just directed a show there last year. They just built a $54 million building.
It's a huge complex now, and they've got a school and everything. When I started there, we were in the storefront too, across from the Gaslight Theater in Halsted. I mean, Gaslight Bar or whatever. I was just going to say, really quickly, which is I just did Bug at Steppenwolf. We just closed a remount of it. Bug at Steppenwolf with several ensemble members, including Randy Arney. Yes.
Who was the artistic director there. He was running the Geffen in LA for a long time. Yeah,
he got squeezed out, apparently. I mean, it was ugly.
Yeah. Well, he's very, I mean, he's
such a great guy.
He's an amazing guy. And he was my directing teacher.
He was
at Columbia.
No way.
Yeah. And so I was able to hire him and have him in my show, which was a great, really.
Oh my God. Now that show was running and then COVID hit and it had to cancel. Is that what happened, or what? It only
when the shutdown happened, Bug only closed out, only lost its last 4 performances. So it had completed most of its run. There was only 4 more performances. But I think the idea was Anna stepped down. They hired new artistic leadership. They finished the building. The building was a construction site when we were doing it, and then the building was finished by the time we came back to remount. So they were having they were heading in a whole new direction. But then I think they also decided, Anna and the incoming artistic staff said, well, why don't we also, to maintain a little continuity, bring back Bug, which was running when we closed,
to link it
to
up.
just to link it a little bit. And I thought that was lovely. So cool. And it was very nice feeling because anyway, so then we did that.
Now, Tracy Letts, have you directed his plays before? You directed one other one, right?
I directed boy, you are on it. You're remembering all this stuff. Yes, I directed a play of his called Man from Nebraska, and I've worked with him a lot as an actor.
Yeah.
And he was in the show at Big Game immediately before us, which was called Are You Now or Have You Ever Been?
Oh yeah. Wow.
Do you remember that show?
Yeah, I do.
Did you see that by any chance?
Yeah, but I didn't put it together. There's a lot of things in retrospect of that time period, because I felt like that was a really rich time period in Chicago for theater and also for improv. And remember they had the Annoyance Theater and they were doing all their crazy shenanigans and Jane Lynch came out of that, and a lot of people, and it just seemed like a very fertile time. And then at Second City, I'm sure there were all kinds of people, Steve Carell and all kinds of people that were there at that time.
That's when all those folks,
and probably Adam McKay and all kinds of people were going on. It just seemed like, to me, just a really rich cultural theater time. And I don't know whether Chicago's always like that or what, but when I look back on it, now we have a perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
We look back on it, we're like, wow, that's a lot of people came out of that environment.
I think it is, and I think it still is, because Chicago has it's a city with an enormous amount of like cultural history there, and there's room to live. Do you know what I mean? It's contained enough where there's sort of the friction and the fission of the molecules hitting each other, of people hitting each other, but it's spread out enough where you can afford to live there.
Yeah.
I guess it's more expensive now, but then there's room to fail.
Yeah.
And there is, frankly, the vibrancy of the non-union part of it, which is not anti-union, but is the grassroots before you get into the union, of doing the work that gets you in, doing the work that gives you the opportunities that allow you to be offered the contract that lets you join the union and start to get paid. And while there's a lot of people and there's a lot of movement, and a lot of very valid labor movement about, like, I demand to be paid what I'm worth, I always do worry that people don't remember that you do have to earn, you have to show that you have to prove your worth somehow. And it is, there are some dues you have to pay.
Yeah.
To
also
learn.
As an actor, you go like, what's the path? I was always trying to find the path, and I'm still trying to find the path as an actor. And so
let me know where it is. Call me.
There isn't one. There's not a ladder that you climb or whatever. Like, you're just finding clues. You're like, oh, here's somebody was here before me. Like that, when I saw you in Geography of Luck, I was like, oh, well, that's a possibility. You could be in this. Because when I got to Steppenwolf, they were like, oh, there's this ensemble. They told me I couldn't even work there. They're like, there's this guy in the box office, his name is Wilson. And he was like, yeah. So he was
a big director.
He became a big director fast too. Very shortly after that, I went there and I saw Wilson and I said, I want to work here. And I had moved to Chicago just to work there, but I didn't tell them that. And they're like, he's like, oh, you'll never work here because there's an ensemble and they do, John Malkovich did the costumes of the last show and this, stuff like that. And he said, and I'm like, here's my number. It turns out he quit that day. And that's why I got to work there. But then later on, I'm reading, and he's like directing, like Burn This at the National Theater in London or something like that. He went on to have a big career, right?
Yeah. I haven't seen him in a while. I should reach out to him, see how he's doing.
So your seminal play, or your play that really put you on the map, was Our Town. Is that right?
I would say, yeah.
And how did you come about this staging of Our Town? I'm sure you've talked about this a lot, but it's a very interesting thing, and it caught a lot of attention because of the way you went about it. And this is a play that's been around for a long time. So can you tell me something about like the germination of that and how it caught fire?
Sure. Well, again, it was nice to be, it was like anything like really good that I've gotten to do. It's in the grassroots of Chicago theater. It's these things are never in like highfalutin places. This is Sean Graney at the Hypocrites, which is this very awesome, really crazy avant-garde. He's this very visionary, transgressive director, and it's like a very like cool company, and they did all this really interesting stuff. And weirdly, he asked me to do a play. He asked me to do. I won't tell the long story. He asked me to do Our Town, which is an oldie-timey play.
Yeah.
And I'm an oldie-timey guy. I was already not considered a very avant-garde guy. So
you were doing a lot of classic type plays, right? I mean, I was
doing revivals, but that's just I guess. Yeah, I was doing revivals because I didn't know any play. I was scared of the process of doing new plays. And I've stumbled into it since then, but I was scared of the process of doing new plays. I didn't really get it. We agreed to do Our Town. He said sort of randomly at the end of our meeting where we agreed to do Our Town, he just said, and I'm very dogmatic about plays, I think. And he said, "Hey, don't be scared to change everything." And just like the meeting was over, because he's like, he doesn't mean like change the word.
No, it means like kind of
don't be,
find a new way to look at it, kind of thing.
Yeah, don't
or
be
if
scared.
Don't be afraid to like take it apart.
Yeah. And so I think I would say when I was doing revivals of old plays, I was very focused on not doing it the way it had been done, but on doing it as if it had never been done, doing it very purely as itself. Like this needs to be its truest self, not anything that was done before, but just like it's happening now. It's never happened before. So that was sort of but with our town, it has a lot of conventions and it has a lot of, I've never gotten good at telling this story. Let me explaining this.
Yeah.
I thought that the play was enormously powerful and that there were aspects of the play that allowed people to be dismissive of it. It's corny. It's kind of narrow in its scope. It tends to be a little sunny. People think it's very homey and homespun. And it's actually got an enormous amount of, it's got lovely things and kind things and sweet things and innocent things. It's always got this really dark undercurrent. You know what I mean? There's this enormous amount of darkness in it, and it's right there, but it gets lost in some of the flannel and tweed and suspenders and milkshakes and, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Strawberry phosphates.
I did the play in college.
Yeah.
But we did it at a very sparse. I did Our Town when I was at the
who
university.
Did you play?
Oh, I played Howie Newsom.
Okay, Howie Newsom.
Like the milkman.
The milkman.
Yeah.
With Bessie the horse, who people would refer to Bessie as a cow, and I'd say, why would we would go like, what's a cow? It's like, it's a horse, because it's imaginary.
It's because he was the milkman.
Yeah, but why would he bring the
Don't
cow?
deliver it with the cow.
It doesn't make any sense. Bringing it along. And people always go, oh, I guess that's right. It would be a horse. Yes, it would be a horse.
It's hilarious. Yeah. So anyway, so I broke your chain of thought, but yeah.
We needed a break from me monologuing. So I just wanted to. And when the play was done in the 30s, it was pretty avant-garde for Broadway. It had no set. If you were, you paid your $3 to go see a Broadway show in 1938. And you walk into a theater and there's nothing on stage and no curtain, like you might be like, where's that's weird. That's naked, raw and kind of naked and weird. And the guy just comes out at the beginning and says, this is all fake. This is a play. Play's called Our Town. That's an actor. That's an actor. That's an actor. So I thought like it was transgressive, but we're used to it. So how could we experience Our Town in a way that seemed surprising again, where you would walk into the theater and go, wait a minute, I don't know I don't understand the rules. I don't know what the rules are yet. And if you're a little off center as an audience, it helps you hear things a little differently and helps you hear things anew. So it was just trying to take the things that were transgressive about Our Town in 38 and try to come up with takes on them, approaches to the same idea, the spirit of the law versus maybe the letter of the law, to allow it to seem a little strange again. So you
wanted to create that same experience that maybe we're kind of used to seeing avant-garde theater.
I would have to do it differently in order to have that experience again.
Yeah.
We couldn't make the same choices. And then one of the things was I happen to be allergic to a habit we all have as actors and all directors have and all playwrights have, which is in order for you to understand what's going on emotionally, we all need to act out the emotions. Like if it's sad, I need to cry. Yeah. And if I'm angry, I need to scream, or if I'm scared. Whereas in real life, people do cry and scream, yes. But in real life, if you're talking about something terrible happening to you, you don't get like a little tear in your voice and explain it. You might say, so I was walking down the street, a guy grabbed me and he shoved me against the wall and he started punching me in the face. I was terrified. You'll go, I was punching me in the face. And
I know,
relive it. You might talk about it and explain it, this thing that happened to you. And that's somehow more
the emotion comes as a surprise even to the person. Like when there is emotion and it comes in a way that you don't expect, like the person stops talking. They don't start going, they all of a sudden will be like, and then they're like, I'm sorry. And you don't even see any kind of thing. It's all going on internally. I find that documentary films are great places to see that. Yeah. Documentary films, you can see people have these real emotions, and it's not the way you expect them. And you don't sometimes even know they're having them. They do.
Yeah.
And that just stops them. So
and
yeah.
you have as an audience, you have the mystery of like, what?
Yeah. What just happened?
What just went away?
Yeah.
And that, which I've felt about that, which I feel sort of is my approach to plays generally, and the combination of the kind of little mandate that, not little, the mandate that Sean had given me, don't be scared to change everything. And that led to, now the other thing about that, is it's not therefore woohoo, everything was brilliant. Our Town happened, those two choices, the play, the moment, and those two approaches happened to have a confluence, and people had this gigantic reaction to that show.
Yeah.
So that was a career thing. So that was a giant. Yeah. People had this, you can't do the same thing with another play. I probably can't do the same thing with Our Town. It doesn't all, it's not a formula for anything. It was merely
did people then expect you to do something in that vein? Richard Maxwell?
Oh yeah.
So Rich he and I were interns at Steppenwolf back in the day.
Right, of course.
And he does things where he just completely turns things on their head, and there's very little emotion in it. In fact, a lot of times he'll cast people who are not actors because he doesn't want them to have any kind of emotion. Do you think that was a Chicago thing at the time? Do you think that we were like influenced in a particular way? And my second question is, did people expect you to do something like that, keep doing that same thing with different plays?
The self-congratulatory aspect of the first thing you said is, the self-congratulatory about Chicago things, I think that we tend in the Midwest to be a little more, hold things a little closer to the vest, play things a little more, to not share, not sort of get too flashy. I think that Chicago was not a place of glamour and glitz. It was and high emotions. It was a place of kind of seriousness and hard work. And since there wasn't a lot of money at stake, it didn't have to have like a really crazy broad appeal to, like, we didn't have to be like, it didn't have to be like populist.
Yeah.
And so I think work was often a little more serious and a little more it's like anything. It's like in publishing, if you aren't trying to make a blockbuster, you can publish a book that is a little cooler, a little more transgressive. If you're not trying to make $1 billion in the music industry, you can use musicians that are a little more innovative. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you don't want to do, so I think that it's just the idea of being grassroots.
One of the things I loved about Chicago theater and the actors and the directors is that they were very pragmatic. I remember Laurie Metcalf, I was backstage and she was like reading the Reader or something. And there was an article in there that said, or maybe it was an Actor magazine, because it was saying, you can't just put down your crossword puzzle and walk on stage. And she's like, oh yeah, watch me. And she puts it down, goes on, gives this great performance. And there was sort of a pride in that kind of blue collar kind of, way of being.
I am proud to say that I was in the room for that conversation.
Really?
It was Amy Morton.
Oh, was it Amy Morton?
It was Amy Morton. That was back. Now, Laurie Metcalf's a perfect example. Laurie Metcalf would say,
maybe I'm thinking of her because I was her dresser on a play, and she was like that too. She was just like,
I mean, if you heard her say that, then maybe I'm remembering it wrong.
No, this is about memory. This is the way memory is. Yeah. Somebody probably told me that story about Amy Morton, and I just linked it to Laurie Metcalf because she was so much that way as well.
Yeah,
she was just
Well, Amy said it backstage at the Geography of Luck. That's my memory of it.
It probably is that story. And I've transcribed it to my own memory.
Yeah. Who said, but somebody in an interview said you can't. It was in the Reader, it was in Performing, or it was in something like that. I remember that because we were obsessively doing crossword puzzles backstage at the Geography of Luck.
It's got to be that. It's got to be that.
I remember that.
And I was like in the ticket office at the time. So.
Yeah,
that's so great. But I love that mentality. But Randy Arney missed his entrance. I've told this story before, but Randy Arney missed his entrance. He was doing a play. This is now that I probably got the names wrong now too, but I think he told me this, is that he was in a play with Malkovich and Sinise, and they were on stage, and he had an entrance, but he was upstairs looking through old pictures because they had, the theater had all kinds of pictures from past performances and things like that. He's up there looking. He missed his entrance by like 15 minutes or some ridiculous amount of time. And he went, and he was like, oh my God, he goes running down. And they were still just on the stage, like reading the paper and just behaving in life. And the play went on, and people didn't even know that he had missed his entrance. People were watching the play. They just thought it was part of the play. And I just love that kind of lore, and, and there's also another story about, that storefront was just a storefront. So somebody walked in there thinking it was a bar and walked on stage. There's a bar on stage, and walked on stage and ordered a drink. And I don't know whether that's true or not, but I love that kind of stuff. But the thing about Chicago community was that you could go, I always say this, you could go to the supermarket and somebody would be like, oh yeah, I saw you in that play. Like people would go to the theater. One of the problems that we have in Los Angeles is that there's so much talent here, and there's so much theater going on, but nobody can go see it because the general public is not going to plays. But in Chicago they were.
Well, that's all, that's always been, I mean, we have to sort of embrace like what it is, like what the meaning of the city is there. You know what I mean? Like the LA, everyone's been saying that about LA all of our lives and from long before. And that's why, Gregory Peck started the Pasadena Playhouse, and, or where maybe it was La Jolla, I don't remember which it was, but so that's the thing, but there is, I've always known there were lots of people doing theater, and I know there isn't a giant audience, and it's hard, but there is some, and it is a place where
definitely
it's what the market wants. You know what I mean? But it is, and of course it is always this thing where all of these sort of serious, that actors who spend all their time doing great plays in New York and Chicago and Kansas City and Boston and and all these other great markets, and go to LA because you have to try to make some money. You know what I mean? And get in these things. And I just remember, seeing actors who had played great roles, and that's an actor, this fantastic actor, who had played like did like Les Dangereux and all these played all these great roles, all these great leading roles. And he became a very, very popular actor in LA, playing just dirtbag, playing like scuzzy bosses and pervy, predatory kind of, reporters and stuff like that. But he would have like 3 lines in the show, and he was great. And I was like, why would he leave all of this great work to go say 3 lines and to be like a dirtbag and which drove me crazy. And then I this was only 7 years ago. I stumbled into a television job.
Yeah.
Because of Our Town, which is I was on this series called Billions. I was on the first season of Billions as like in a little arc. And
it was a nice little arc though too. I mean, it was a really
fantastic.
Nice arc. Yeah, great character.
Job. Great money, great character, great lovely people who I still see and talk to. And but I was like, I get it. Because I'm comfortable. Everybody's combing my hair. There's food everywhere. Like, I get it. it. I want that money. I don't want to learn lines. I don't want to be in a cold theater anymore. I don't want to play a great part. So on that level, I get it. Yeah.
Do you now?
The band's visit is, well, it'll be over by the time this is on. But the band's visit was just playing in LA. My musical I directed, not my musical.
Yes. So tell me about that. That you directed a musical, you won the Tony.
I did.
Yes. And Tony Shalhoub was in it. I have not been able to see it, but I have seen pieces of it online, and it just seems beautiful. I mean, it just seems like a beautiful. And what had you directed musicals before? Was it different?
I had directed a few musicals. I was very interested in musicals, but I was interested in I am not equipped to do something like The Music Man in a way that would be, it is not, I could probably try to do it, but I think that I would not be able to give the requisite frothiness and joy and for something like, say, The Music Man or something like that. But to go
Frothiness
back
and
to a
joy, I like
question,
that. Yeah, go ahead.
well, to go to do a question, you would sort of to follow up a question, which is, do people expect? I mean, yeah, like if if you stumble into something that seems almost like a brand, that you're going to do something, but I've been able. Ultimately, the band's visit was something it was another job I stumbled into, but that was actually asking me to apply the kind of approach to a musical that we had taken to our town, which is, how do I make that people are going to sing instead of talk seem hopefully different or new, or not seem like the same way it had always happened every time you've seen a musical.
Yep.
And so I was able to and not that I do try to do that with every single show, but that was maybe the upside of an opportunity where they said, well, why don't we take the our town approach to this, or this seems like it wants the our town approach. And luckily that turned out okay. It's never been a blockbuster, but it has always been, it recouped, it turned a profit, and it won a bunch of awards. It's not Hamilton. Great. I mean, that also recouped the dirt, but it's not a musical that has 3 national tours going,
but it has a national tour going, which is,
it has a national tour, and it has always been profitable.
So great.
Just not in the zillions, but in the
gajillions. In the gajillions.
Yeah, in the gajillions. Yeah.
I would love to see it. It's gone now, apparently, from LA. I haven't really been going to the theater.
Sunday. No, I closes on Sunday. So if you want to, let me know. I can make that happen.
Wow. Cool. So this is one thing I wanted to ask you about. So in the arts, there are ups and downs, and we've all had our ups and downs. How do you navigate those ups and downs and keep your head in the mental state it takes to take on a huge production that people put a lot of money into, that might be on Broadway and that is going to be reviewed and all these things? How do you keep your head in the right place to take on something like that, knowing that it's an up and down industry?
That's a really interesting question, because the kinds of pressure that I don't deal with, like if you asked me to, I don't know, get a fleet of trucks from one end of the country to the other, or you know what I mean, mobilize something I don't know how to do, I'd be a hysterical mess. I'd be, but because I've sort of learned over the years how to do this, I don't freak out as much. When you said, what I started thinking when you were talking about ups and downs, I tell you, the downs, the big ups started in 9. I've had 3 or 4 downs since then, and when it might look like I'm flying high, I've had big downs, and I didn't handle them all well. But what I did learn is they end, you know what I mean? That a down is not necessarily permanent. I mean, I suppose it can be, but unless you just give up, a down is never permanent. And what I learned, and so I didn't handle things well, but I would say that the pandemic was incredibly helpful and useful, because I arrived at this, what I figured out in the pandemic was patience. And you were not, I don't remember whether this is in the interview or not, when we were talking before we started about what do we do? What do we do? There was an urgency to that, which is, how do I keep the juices flowing? How do I keep my voice out there? How do I keep all the voices in my head and get them out? But also, and you do that, and there was a problem, but patience seemed to be something that maybe I'm acquiring, and maybe that only happens when you get older. I was asking myself the other day, is it useful for young people to have patience, or should they be going no, one more? Is that going to be part of the drive? And I don't know what the answer is to that. That's maybe just a point of discussion. But when I'm doing a giant project, you go like, it doesn't all have to be. I can say, they come, you have to answer these 5 questions. I'm not ready to answer those 5 questions. I'm working on these 5 questions. I'm going to work on these and I will answer those. I'm not ready to now. Instead of accepting the chaos of, you have to do these now, I have to do them now. I'm not ready to do those now. We will figure it out. So I don't know, patience.
There's a maturity and a trust that occurs after a while where you
hopefully
know that things can kind of inform you as you're working on them, rather than you having to have all the answers. You can actually listen. I think listening, in the arts is like a major tool to making great art, is being able to listen and observe. And if you're always trying to put your intentions out, and rather than taking in what's there, it can be a big mistake.
Yes, because I think that and for someone who's in charge, you know what I mean? If I have like the big chair on a show, I might think, oh, they're expecting me to do everything.
Yeah.
And
it's a collaborative, hugely collaborative thing.
Yeah. Before I did Women in Water, I always designed the set and costumes for all my shows because I didn't trust anyone to do it. Yeah. I thought I had to do it all. And then Anna made me hire a set designer. I hired this brilliant set designer on our show, Jane Galt, and she was an adult. She was I think she was in her 40s or 50s at the time, and she had studied, and she taught me how to talk to a set designer and not tell her exactly what I wanted, but what I was feeling, what I imagined, what I thought, and then she could translate it into something. Now, I'm not claiming I listen all the time well at all, but I think what you're saying, you're reminding me to go to work tomorrow and listen a little bit more. So that's good. So thank you.
I like it. Okay, so 2 things. What are you working on now? And this other thing is, are you ever going to direct TV and movies? And is that something that you want to do or aspire to do at all?
I'm working on a play called Prayer for the French Republic at Manhattan Theater Club, written by Josh Harmon.
Oh, wow.
He's a marvelous playwright who had sort of like done the thing that playwrights have to do in America now, which is write plays with 4 or 5 people in them, and where they're all in the living room and they have it out. It's beautiful work. And he wrote Bad Jews. He wrote Significant Other. He wrote a lot of very good plays. Admissions. But he finally just said, screw it, and wrote a big play. He's written this giant 3-act play with 11 people, and it spans 5 generations. And he just went like, it's not Women in Water, but I mean, we don't have any battle scenes, but but he wrote this very big, ambitious play, and boy, it just brought out all of these other parts of him as a writer. Already very successful playwright. It brought out all of these other parts of him that are happening while he's maturing as a writer. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he didn't say, I have to do that. I have to fit the box that the theaters want. So it's really exciting. It's very, very beautiful. We're really all happy to be in it every day.
Do you workshop plays as you work them? Is he rewriting as you're going?
Well, yes, he's actually writing today, and I'm going to get on the phone with him in a little while and talk to him about scenes he's writing. But yeah, we were able to do, because of the pandemic, we were able to do several workshops and take time with it.
Nice.
I mean, that's again, like people need to hear that I had a good time in the pandemic. That's no good. People were suffering.
People need to hear that.
We're having, I don't know what's happening in LA, New York shows are canceling performances again.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, it's less, but we're boosted and people aren't getting as sick. And if this happens again, it happens again. We'll get through it again.
I saw you. There was a picture of you directing with your mask on. I think it was Randy Arnie, and you had your mask on. Yeah, I mean, it's it's just new world we're in. Hopefully, we're gonna get through it. But yeah,
you sort of say in rehearsal, you say, "I got mask fatigue. I got to go in the other room." So
it hurts my ears, but I mean, nobody wants to hear about that either.
There's a little rubber thing that connects the 2 straps right here. Yeah.
Oh. Well, that's a good thing. Okay, so now my
you
final question.
Take it off your ears. You take it off your ears and you connect it there.
I've always thought somebody must have invented something like that. I haven't got it. So my final question is about TV and film. Is it something you want to do, or is it something? Because a lot of a lot of theater directors like yourself go off and make great films.
I think that might be a younger person's game. I guess I want to, because I would love the idea of doing it, but I have never loved it enough to pursue it. And so I think you got to ask yourself, if you didn't, I wanted to do plays enough to do anything to do it. I wanted to do Women in Water bad enough to face all odds, to go against all odds, all practical odds, what any of us were capable of before we did that.
Yeah.
And try to do it.
Yeah.
And I have never said I will now throw myself at the film industry and do anything I can to get that. So I must not want it bad enough.
It's weird though, because one of the things is you have this acting career that's going on that's really fantastic. I mean, you just did a play with Elaine May, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're like up there with the heavy hitters doing plays on Broadway as an actor, and it's sort of this kind of thing that you're kind of like, I'm a pretty good actor, I guess, so you've got these things going on that are not necessarily something you have put your whole heart, maybe you put your whole heart into it, but you don't lay your stake like, this is what I do. This is the only thing that I do. So it seems like this is another natural offshoot of what you do.
Well, the Waverly Gallery, I was in that play. Yeah. And I was talking to an actor who's in Prayer for the French Republic, and we said blah 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 blah. The play came up, and I said something about the Waverly Gallery. He goes, "Oh my God, I love that! I love that! Did you see it?" He said to me, "Did you see the Waverly Gallery?" Yeah.
Yeah, I had a really good seat.
I said I was in the Waverly Gallery. He goes, "You were?" I said, I was the stepfather. He goes, I don't. He was not backing down. He says, I don't remember you.
Wait, which one were you?
There were 5 people in that play. 5. I was one of them.
Well, you did such a great job. You transformed yourself, apparently.
That's what we have to say about my
that's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's great. That's great. Okay, well, I think we're going to have to end the interview because we've run out of time.
Thank you for asking me. This is great. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, it was super fun. So I really look forward to what you're doing in the future. And thanks so much for being on it, because for me also, this was a personal thing to kind of figure out what happened there. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a long time ago, and it was such a kind of seminal moment for me that it's really nice to reconnect with you like this.
Very much so.
All right, so we're back, and hopefully you can hear me. Yes, so that was David Cromer, fantastic director, really great guy. Appreciate having him on the show. We're still in Mexico, yes. I do need a margarita. Thanks everybody for joining in. Pass this around to your theater friends, your actor friends, because this guy is a heavy hitter. He's very low key for all the stuff that he's accomplished in his life. Maybe that's kind of a secret to his success. I don't know, but it's really great to reconnect with him. Katie Sweeney, thanks David. Yeah, everybody. Yeah, really good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff in there for people to be inspired by, I think, or even help people find their way, through the ups and downs of whatever industry they're in. Behind me is a whale shark. I'm going to be diving into the water with these whale sharks on Monday. We're hoping that we can get some footage of that. It should be really fun. Feliz Navidad to everybody. Chuck Goldsmith, great seeing you here today. Now, of course, we've got a dance break, and of course it's Christmas themed because it happens to be Christmas Eve, although you wouldn't know it here. There ain't no snow on the ground. All right, let's get on with it. It's going to be Broken Peach singing a Christmas song.
you better not cry, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's seeing you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So behave for goodness sake. You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not run, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus coming to town. Santa Claus coming to town. Santa Claus is coming to town. You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not run, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list and checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So we know, for goodness sake, oh, you better watch out, you better